This is something that comes up quite a bit in personal development. I was actually a little hesitant to record this because it just comes up so much. I was thinking it's kind of like beating a dead horse, but at the same time, there was like a moment where I heard the right thing about this particular topic that sort of changed my mindset. So I kind of decided to throw that out and just go ahead and record it. Plus, this didn't seem complete without talking about this. It's just the whole idea of how necessary failure is and how sort of necessary it is to reframe the way you think about failure. So a few things, like a couple things that I read that I remember specifically from the book Psycho-Cybernetics. It was talking about how your brain uses negative feedback to correct course, similar to a guided torpedo. And I feel like I've talked about this exact thing before, but I'll repeat it. It's, the torpedo is constantly going off track and on track. Maybe it gets pushed around by current or whatever happens, but it's constantly correcting course, and it's using all of those mistakes to find its target. And I believe they talked about that your brain works in a similar way. And so if you think about that along the lines of when you're learning something, you fail way more than you succeed. But I think when you're doing small things or when you're doing things that you expect are new to you, like I was thinking about this, like playing an instrument. If you've ever played like a guitar or bass or something like that, when you're trying to learn something new, you actually fail way more than you succeed. And I don't even know if that changes. I mean, I guess once you get really good, you don't fail quite as much. But when you're learning something new, you're constantly failing, and that's what your brain needs for you to correct the course and kind of find your way and figure out where, like in the instance of a guitar or a bass, you have to have those failures in order to figure out where your fingers need to go, and if you're strumming the chords at the right place and all these kind of things. Another thing that I read that was pretty interesting, the guy Babe Ruth, he holds the world record for the most home runs, but he also holds the world records for the most strikeouts. So kind of speaks to that a little bit when you think about it. Like he has to, if he really wants to like try to be the best at hitting home runs. I don't know shit about sports or anything. This is just something I read, but the way I think about it is in order to be really great at something like hitting a home run, it makes a lot of sense that you would also have to be getting a lot of strikeouts. You're taking a lot of chances to try to get that one thing that hits it out of the fucking park, So to talk about a little bit along the lines of graffiti and art and some of the sort of mindset stuff about it, I know that obviously I think most of us feel this at some point where you don't really want to take a lot of risks when you're out and doing stuff on a wall in public, because if you don't pull it off, then you don't want to have that thing be out there in public. And especially now, with social media, not only like people could see this thing if it came out terrible, but they could also take pictures of it and post it on the internet. And that actually happened to me now that I'm talking about this. I remember in Pedro a few years ago, I painted just some local little practice yard, and I did this piece that I hated. I took a picture of it, but I was like, I don't want to show anybody this. It looks like shit. And I wasn't even really taking a chance. I just didn't do a good job. But like that same day, I see somebody tag me in a photo, and it was that fucking piece that I hated, So I think there's something mentally about something about our mindset that doesn't want those failures to be public. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, but if you think about it, when you think about your style, even where it is now, like it wouldn't be where it is now if you didn't take some chances to try to learn something new. And obviously you could take those chances in a black book and then bring it to the wall when you're more comfortable. But at the same time, there has to be some failures along the way in order to get you to where you are. And so, you see a lot of writers, and I'm guilty of this too, where you'll find some style or something that you're comfortable with, and you'll sort of stay with that. And I think there's more to it than just this failure thing, but I think that definitely plays a role in it. Once you get really comfortable to where you can put this style up on the wall with, it takes a lot less effort, and you kind of know you're going to pull it off and your letters are going to come out the way you want it or whatever that is. I think you get more comfortable that you're not going to fail by putting that out there. So I think that's a part of why some writers, including myself, we sort of stay in the same style. And then eventually I'll catch myself personally, I'll catch myself and be like, okay, I need to try to figure out something new. And so like I have a handful of different things that I like to do that had I not made some decision to try to break out of what I was doing, I wouldn't have got there. But I still find myself kind of repeating things, things that I like. I don't know if that's going to change, but if it is the failure thing that's holding you back in something like that, you got to think back to like even when you're really young. Like if you were always unwilling to fail, like if you had this, obviously when you're a little kid, you don't really have this kind of same mindset because you're still kind of new and everything's just, you're just not conscious of yourself in that same way. But imagine if you were, you would never have learned to speak. You would never have learned to ride a bike. You'd never have learned to walk. Like, you ever watched a baby try to walk for the first time? I mean, like, it's constant failure after failure after failure. And I don't have kids, so I didn't really watch this a lot, but I would imagine they don't even get frustrated. It's just part of the whole fucking process, So what if we can kind of go back to that mindset a little bit and sort of just allow ourselves to make these mistakes and not have a problem with it? I mean, that's kind of part of the mindset is to not beat yourself up about it. Forgive yourself, so to speak. There's something I think I read it somewhere, but somebody talked about the way you word things, and even if it is in your own mind. If you were to say, I tried this and I failed, this recognizes the error, recognizes that you didn't pull off whatever it was that you were trying to do, but that alone can help lead to future success, because you really have to have those failures in order to, get yourself to where you want to be. But if you change the way you word it and you say, I'm a failure, like that kind of stops everything, that kind of fucks everything up. So I think it's part of it is that mindset of trying to get your head around the idea that failure is part of the process, and it's something that you should be willing to do. I mean, there's a lot of quotes that I'm trying to think of like where it was, but like I think I might have heard it maybe in like MMA or boxing or something, and they say like if you never get your ass kicked, or if you never lose a fight, or even in sports or whatever, if you never lose or never fail, then maybe you're not taking enough risks. You're not fighting the best opponents or playing against the best teams or whatever that is. Like there's a lot of things to it. So you can apply that to your art and your graffiti. So if like every single piece you do comes out exactly the way you want it, maybe that's a sign that you're not taking enough chances and not trying enough new things and pushing yourself to the limit, or at least pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And we've talked about that before. And I'm actually going to talk about this even more once I finish this one book. It's called Flow. It's a pretty dense read. I'm sort of jumping back and forth between a couple books, because this one, the book Flow, is a little harder for me to read than the other ones. But in that book, they talk about, in order to achieve the flow state, which is like when everything else shuts out and you're kind of like hyper focused on what you're doing and you're really enjoying it, and that's like all you want to do in that moment, whether it's like an hour, 2 hours, whatever, you're in that flow state. And they said the way that you get to that flow state is to be operating sort of just outside of your capacity. So in the case of something like art or whatever, if you're pushing yourself to the edge, not only are you potentially achieving that flow state, but you're also pushing yourself to the edge where you're probably going to fail more at certain things along the way. But that's going to help your brain make all the connections it needs to make the growth that you need to make. So I found a few quotes that I thought were pretty cool, so I'm going to read those to add to this here. So the first one says, "No man ever became great or good except for through many and great mistakes." That's William E. Gladstone. So another one, "I have learned more from my mistakes than from my success." Sir Humphrey Davy. We learn wisdom from failure much more than from success. We often discover what we'll do by finding what we'll not do, and probably he who never made a mistake never made a discovery. Samuel Smiles said that. This one is, if someone asked Edison if he was discouraged by so many failed attempts, there's some famous thing that he made, like something like 10,000 failed attempts to get to the light bulb or something like that. You can look it up. I don't remember this specifically, but his answer to that was, no, I am not discouraged, because every wrong attempt discarded is another step forward. So that was, again, Thomas Edison. So pretty cool quotes, and makes a lot of sense in the context of this thing. So I have a few action steps that I had thought about. I was doing this for a while and I kind of forgot about it, and I think I should start getting back into it. But it's there's this whole thing about, people talk about gratitude all the time. I think a lot of them talk about gratitude in the sense of being grateful for all the things that are going right. And I might have talked about this before, but I heard a guy named Marcus Anderson. He has a podcast called Octa Non Verba, and he was talking about gratitude in the sense of being grateful for your adversity, because that's where a lot of the growth and a lot of the strength comes from. So I was thinking, and I've done this before, where you're grateful for your failures. So you could wake up every morning and remind yourself that every failure, large or small, has contributed to your growth. And without failure, there is no growth. So it is something to be grateful for. So maybe that's something you can practice if this is something that's a struggle for you in terms of mindset. So another one, you can use small failures as training to get the mindset you need to overcome larger failures. So if you're thinking about, I think we have these micro failures all day, every day, and we just don't really notice them. So I'm wondering if maybe you were to notice them and try to get your head around, like, this is something that just happens all the time. So then when something larger does happen, you've managed to get in all the reps, or a lot of reps in practicing this stuff. So another one last one that I wrote down is you could meditate on past failures to find the lessons. You most likely learned something. You can find it and be grateful for it. I started doing this a long time ago, like many years ago, where, I used to reflect back in the past, and I would get that feeling in my stomach, and it would I'd just be like, why did I do that? Or why did I say that? Or why did I try to do this? Or whatever it is. Like, if I would constantly be going back to the past and having these kind of like negative feelings towards it. But then over time, I sort of shifted my mindset to where I started recognizing what I learned from all of that stuff. So it could be all these different things. It could be past relationships or past job experiences, maybe where you didn't behave in the way you were supposed to, or way you should have, or not in line with your values, or whatever it is. You can look back on your past at things that you wish you hadn't have done, and then find the lessons in those and use them in your current life. I mean, I do this all the time, and I feel like those kind of past things, now when they come up, I don't have that negative feeling towards those things anymore. I have things that I wish I didn't do. I mean, I never really did anything too crazy, super regrettable. So I don't know. I can't really speak to, like, if it was something that you really can't forgive yourself for. Well, I don't really have those, but like any of the kind of all the normal shit that most of us go through, you can definitely find lessons in those. There's something to be said about not repeating the same mistakes. So if you're doing that and you're getting into that habit of, even you don't have to consciously do it. Like, even when just that stuff pops up and you're like, oh man, I remember that shit. Like, I wish I didn't do that. Use that as an opportunity to try to figure out what you learned from that, and what you can use from that experience to make yourself better. So yeah, that's all I got. Hope you're all doing well, and we will talk to you next week. Thank you. All right. Good.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And stay up.